Hey up everybody, welcome back to the Aldo Cycling YouTube channel, where today I am going to be looking at the VELOGAMES Tirreno Adriatico game. Of course, we've got some big names in this race, and I think most importantly you guys are going to be here to try and find out some good 6-pointers and 4-pointers and stuff like that, so try and counteract the really expensive prices of some riders. So let me start off with those expensive riders and talk about the most expensive one. In fact, I think this might be one of the most expensive ones I have ever seen in a stage race. It is Tadej Pogacar, and he is 28 points. That is a hell of a lot, but I think he's incredibly worth it, and I expect that a lot of people out there will be putting him on, including me, just because of how he looked at Strade Bianche and the fact that he just seems to be pretty unstoppable when it comes to like Italian races. So I would probably say yes, probably put Pogacar on. I don't really see a scenario in which you probably shouldn't put him on, because the TT early on will get him fairly high up in GC, and then he'll just continue to accumulate those points daily until the very end of the race. And the same applies really for Remco Evenepoel and Jonas Vingegaard, because they fall into the same category. They will get likely inside the top 10 on stage 1 in the TT, and then as some of the other TT specialists drop out of the top 10, they'll just move up as a consequence of that and just pick you up points on a daily basis. On some of the uphill finishes, I think there's kind of like 2 kind of uphill finishes, and then there's the really mountainous stage. They'll probably finish inside the top 10 there as well, maybe even likely the top 3. So I think that any one of these 3 are really good picks. For me, I think that Vingegaard might be a better shout than Evenepoel. Even though Evenepoel has a higher chance of winning the opening stage, Vingegaard just has that more consistent climbing. Of course, we've seen him at the Tour, whereas Evenepoel, we haven't really seen him go up against the likes of these big names in like a really steep climb. So I'm more leaning towards Vingegaard than for Evenepoel. And another reason for that is that Alaphilippe is here, which means that Alaphilippe might be the guy for the punchier finishes, whereas Vingegaard and Pogacar will be the favourites for their team to go and try and win those stages. So Evenepoel and Alaphilippe have a co-leadership. Carapaz I wouldn't be picking really, just because 2 points extra is Vingegaard. Caleb Ewan for 16 is understandable because he is likely the best sprinter in this race, but for 16 it's quite expensive considering there's only really 3 stages he'll be contesting. But saying that, he is quite likely to win at least one of them in my eyes. I do think he is perhaps quite a lot, but if you are looking for just secure wins in the sprints, I think that Caleb Ewan's your man. Miguel Angel Lopez, Enric Mas are also 16 points. They'll likely finish inside the top 10 as well. Neither of them probably doing anything spectacular, just getting you those top 10 positions in GC and also on some of the stages. Romain Bardet didn't look great at the UAE Tour, so I'm not overly certain about him. Cav is probably one of the top 3 sprinters in this race. He's got a good lead out here as well. I think that Cav is pretty good for 14 points. He's probably better than Sepkus, Richie Porte and Sagan. I would avoid Sagan just because he doesn't look too great at the moment. I think that Cav is likely your best 14-pointer. For 12-pointers, you've got Ackerman here, who doesn't really have too much of a lead out, but will certainly pick up some kind of like top 5s in some of the sprints. Demar is another sprinter. I'd expect him to be better than Ackerman just because he's got a full lead out around him. Or you could pick some of the GC riders like Wilco Kelderman, maybe Thibaut Pinot if you're feeling especially ballsy. Michael Matthews he crashed out of Strade. He might contest some of the punchy finishes and the bunch sprints and maybe even a TT on a really good day, but I just haven't seen too much from Matthews this year, which makes me quite apprehensive to choose him. Nizzolo's another great pick, just as forgetting the sprinter who's going to finish in the top 10 pretty consistently. Alex Arambarou, some of the puncher stages will really suit him. Is he going to be working for Enric Mas though? Barguil, Buchmann, Caruso, Ciccone all fall into the boat of potentially finishing inside the top 10 but not really doing anything spectacular. Kuznetsov got dropped at Strade, and he's also contesting with Greg Van Avermaet and Ventlam, so I'd stick clear of them just because you don't know who they're going to be going for on any given day. Filippo Ganna will likely be contesting Remco Evenepoel for the win on stage 1. If Ganna does win, he will then pick up the subsequent GC points for the next 3 days, so that could end up getting something like 250 points, which is a pretty good return. Ruben Guerrero would be a great GC option and also fairly fast on some of the puncher stages for EF. Olav Koy is a very fast sprinter. We saw him finishing 2nd at the UAE Tour. He could be a good one. Tim Merlier is relatively cheap for 10, but he hasn't shown great form this year. Mohoric I probably won't pick. He doesn't really suit many of the stages here. Perdun, again, could be a very good pick as well if he goes for GC. Viviani is looking surprisingly reinvigorated as a sprinter, very fast now. And Tim Wellens, now that we reached March, seems to have just kind of dropped off a bit of form. And then you got a lot of good 8-pointers who are going to be, you know, some sprinters, some GC. You got Asgreen as a TT rider, Bauhaus, Buhani, Cimolai, Consoni, Maggie, Alberto Dainese, Caden Groves, Alexander Kristoff, Jordi Meus, Sasha Modelo, Matteo Moschetti. You've got all of these sprinters who like could all finish inside the top 5 on a stage. I can't really tell you which one it's going to be. You just have to use your own gut instincts on that. Some of the GC riders, Lorenzo Fortunato. You've also got Geoffrey Bouchard, Victor Lefebvre. Who else have you got? Maybe Jonathan Navarez, after looking really good at Strade, might be given a bit more freedom by Ineos, but I do expect him to be fairly chained to Carapaz. So that's all the 8-pointers. Now we're getting into the good stuff, the 6-pointers. My most recommended 6-pointers would be Eduardo Affini, because he'll do well in that opening stage and get the assist points for Vingegaard. Same applies for Mikkel Bjerg, who will finish inside the top 10 in the opening TT and then get assist points. Feynman Lensman for GC potentially did finish alright up the Jebel Hafit. You've also got Gogol, who of course crashed out Strade. How will he go? Christian Rodriguez finished second in GC at the Ruta del Sol. I think he's quite a sneaky pick for a potential top 10 on GC, but you know, there are quite a lot of other good GC guys here compared to Ruta del Sol. Benjamin Thomas for a top 10 in the first TT, also pretty good at climbing. Maxime Angels will be working for Wellens. And other than that, there was one other rider who I went past, and that is Gernelek. He looked good at the Volta Algarve, if you remember back. I think he finished inside the top 10 on GC and 5th on that final TT. And in terms of the 4-pointers, I'm afraid to say that there's not too many. Lawson Craddock, if you're really scraping the barrel for a TT rider. Maybe also Mika Maestri, because he gets in the break quite a bit at Tirreno Adriatico. If you look back to 2017 and 2019, you'll see what I mean. Tom Scully sometimes pulls out a decent TT for this, as does Matthias Norsgaard, and maybe even like Harry Sweeney to get a decent TT result and maybe pick up some points elsewhere. But that is my full, like, going through all the riders. There's been a lot of them who can really contest a lot of the finishes. This is currently the team that I'm going with. I hope this has been a helpful video. Let me know in the comments down below who you are thinking of putting onto your team and whether you are brave enough to go against the Pogacar strategy. And all that is left to say is to keep safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video. Salut!